Commission meeting, September 8th. Welcome all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is the invocation. Let's pray. God of peace, we pray for unity in our meeting today. We have come together as a group united in passion and purpose. Come and help us maintain unity as we discuss certain matters. We pray for open hearts and minds that will promote and accept better ideas. If there be anyone who is remiss in failing, we ask for humility to accept and learn from necessary correction. Dear God, we seek your honor in everything we do and say, so we lift up this meeting to you. Be in our midst, bind our hearts and minds by your Spirit. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay. If you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is the determination of a quorum. When I call your name, if you can please say aye. Tamikia? Aye. Gwendolyn? Aye. Ernestine? Aye. Leslie? Aye. Okay. And Tom is absent today for health reasons. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. We have some changes to make in terms of removing some items. And the first one is item C3, will not be heard. That does not require a public hearing, so we're not hearing that. The county items that are going to be removed are R1, R2, and R5. Chris, if you can let us know the addresses.
Yes, Chairman. So anybody who's in attendance for 2294 Iris Drive, Southwest Conyers, Georgia, that item will not be heard tonight. Items R2, 0 Glen Road, Conyers, Georgia, that item will not be heard tonight. As well as our item R5, 460 Honey Creek Road, will not be heard tonight.
Okay. Thank you. So we have an amendment of the agenda to vote on. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any discussion? Is there a second? Second, okay. Any discussion? Okay. All right, we went backwards here, okay. All right, motion approved. Next item is the approval of the minutes of August 11th. Your motion?
I motion to approve the minutes as written.
Motion approved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion approved. Next item is the rules of procedures for public hearings.
Hi, I'm sorry, just 1 second. Can we stop the recording for a second?
Yes.
Chairman Weinstein, I believe there's just a little bit of confusion right now about the items being heard tonight.
Okay.
I just want to reiterate that several of the items will not be heard tonight. There are a few reasons why, and it would be, item C3, and the one for Iris Drive, and also for Glen Road, and for the specific address for Honey Creek would be 460 Honey Creek Road. So I want to give an opportunity for anyone in the audience who might want to not stay for the rest of the public hearing. You're definitely welcome to, but you just won't be able to comment on those items tonight because they've been pulled off the agenda.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, if we could have the, we'll give you a minute or so to leave if you wish, or you're welcome to stay.
I have two, so you want one? Go to the last one. Yeah, I don't have mine.
Okay, now, next item would be for the rules of procedures for public hearings.
Each speaker must sign their name to the appropriate zoning case sheet and fill out a public comment card to register their intent to speak prior to the start of this meeting. Each item of business shall be handled in the order that it appears on the agenda, unless upon motion of the Planning Commission, the order is changed. A member of the city or county planning staff will present each item to the Conyers-Rockdale Planning Commission and will further provide a recommendation upon each item of business. The zoning applicant or the agent will state their name and address at the podium and will have 10 minutes in which to make his or her presentation. Any portion of their 10 minutes may be reserved for rebuttal following the opposition to the application. After the applicant's presentation, all registered speakers who wish to speak in favor of the application will then be heard. Prior to speaking upon the item, each registered speaker will state their name and address at the podium. They will also be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Once the applicant has made his or her presentation and the speakers in favor of the application have been heard, the secretary will then call upon the registered speakers in opposition to the application. The opposition shall likewise be limited to a total of 10 minutes. Once the public hearing portion is closed, no other speakers will be heard. As a reminder, speakers are to address the Planning Commission, not the applicant or the audience, and are expected to conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. The use of abusive or profane language shall not be allowed. No debate or argument between speakers shall be permitted. After all public comments have been heard, the Planning Commission may elect to hold general discussion. The Planning Commission will vote upon a recommendation that will continue forward to the City of Conyers City Council or the Rockdale County Board of Commissioners public hearings.
Thank you. Old business, none. New business, City of Conyers is item C1, case 10-2022, ordinance 1293. A request for a text amendment to section 8-7-92 to allow more than one business to obtain an occupational tax license to operate in a personal care home. Applicant is Shelton Shateen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, it's a pleasure being before you all this evening. On December 16th, 2020, Mr. Shateen received a special use permit for a personal care home group, and that's for 7 to 15 persons, at 1175 Green Street. And prior to submitting the application for a special use permit, Mr. Shateen was provided with the supplemental use standards for a personal care home as found in section 8-7-92 WW. Mr. Shateen's special use permit application also stated in his intention to operate an adult daycare, and this in addition to the personal care home. Staff informed Mr. Shateen at the time that the supplemental use standard, specifically item 8 that's before you, prohibits any additional businesses being operated from a personal care home. Mr. Shateen accepted, understood that at the time, and moved forward with his application and was successful. So fast forward to now, and Mr. Shateen has submitted a request to amend this text amendment to remove item section 8-7-92 WW in order to operate more than one business from a personal care home location. Just as kind of overview of what a personal care home is, a personal care home it is a building or buildings in which provides housing, meals, and 24-hour watchful oversight for one or more ambulatory adults, and that is licensed as a personal care home by the Office of Regulatory Services of the State Department of Human Resources, including, and it goes in to describe the personal care home registered, personal care home family, personal care home group, and personal care home congregate. So likewise, the definition of what an adult daycare is means an establishment operated by any person with or without compensation for providing for the care, supervision, and oversight only during daytime hours of 7 or more adults who are elderly, physically ill or infirm, physically handicapped, or mentally handicapped. There are supplemental standards for adult daycare as well. So what are the differences? Well, the differences break down to basically personal care home is 24-hour watchful oversight for ambulatory adults. Ambulatory being people who are able to walk about on their own accord without being bedridden. Adult daycare, on the other hand, does allow for is only for daytime hours and can include those people who are physically infirm or ill, those who are handicapped physically or mentally. So there are some differences in the type of care provided to the two different types of uses. So with that said, staff reviewed this application. Staff looked at the purpose and intent of the personal care home definition and supplemental standards, as well as that for the daycare. We believe that the request to amend the supplemental use standards for personal care home to remove item 8, which will allow more than one business to obtain an occupational tax to operate in a personal care home, is not in a positive manner for the personal care homes. Therefore, staff does not support this request, as the focus of a personal care home should be providing 24-hour continuous watchful oversight of ambulatory adults that live permanently in that personal care home, and therefore they would not be potentially disturbed by individuals coming and going at daytime hours and evening hours. So that is staff's recommendation. If you have any questions of me, I'll be happy to answer them at this time. Mr. Satine is here, and he is prepared to speak as needed.
I have a question. So I want
Yes,
to go back to the two kinds of facilities, the personal care home, and
Yes,
what
ma'am.
was the other one?
Adult daycare?
The adult daycare.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's my understanding that this person is trying to merge those two? To have us to amend this so that they can merge those two kinds of facilities?
Yes, ma'am. It is my understanding as well. The personal care home is established, and the applicant is now trying to operate an additional business. Previously, the additional business was an adult daycare facility. So whether it's an adult daycare, whether it's a grass cutting service,
Yeah.
the supplemental standard says no other business can be established from a personal care home.
Right.
So again, it could be, if you've got a personal care home, and should this ordinance be amended, then any other type of business allowed in that zoning district would be allowed to operate from the personal care home. And the purpose and intent of the personal care is to focus solely on the care for those residents who reside there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll now hear from the applicant.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Gaither did a good job in summarizing how we got to this point. Last time I spoke in front of you all was to solicit you all's approval for the special land use permit, and I was honored that that was approved, and now we've been in business for, I guess, about 3 or 4 months, and we've been a blessing to several families. When we initially purchased this building, that was my initial intent, like Mr. Gaither said, to have a adult daycare center there as well as a personal care home where the residents could stay, have 24-hour care. I kind of use the analogy of like a frat house. When I was in college, we had a frat house where the senior brothers would be able to stay in the actual the venue. We'll have a party, but then when these other students go home, we had the honor of remaining in the actual facility. So that's kind of what I envision our seniors doing to a certain degree in their senior years. And when you say whether it's going to be a hindrance or a detriment to the quality of life of those residents, and that's our overall goal, and that should be the overall goal of you all as well when you make this decision. I don't see it as being a hindrance or an inconvenience. I think that the purpose of the ordinance, or what your predecessors' ideology or thinking was when they made the ordinance, was to ensure that those residents had a continuity of quality of care and it wouldn't be interrupted. But I guess my position is that the verbiage of the ordinance needs to be revisited and to include something of the fact that maybe if it's an extension of existing services, because that's basically what I'm asking for. We currently have a license for 7 residents, but we have an occupancy level that was set by the fire department of Rockdale for 78 people. We have a huge conference room that with 5 tables, 5 chairs around each table that could easily sit 20 to 30 people. Every day it's only 8 people there. So we're not really utilizing the space of the facility. Furthermore, we already offer adult daycare services. The only difference is that we offer adult night care services. In other words, our clients don't have the option to choose the 12-hour package or the 24-hour package. So what I'm asking for is just an extenuation of our existing services. If I owned a beauty salon and I wanted to have massages in the back, it's an extension of our existing services. If I wanted to hire a massage therapist, would I be prevented from doing so because of an ordinance? Or if I had a gas station, I wanted now to offer car wash services, would I be preventing to do so? Because it's really an extension of the services that I'm already offering. So I don't see that how this could be a hindrance or take away from the quality of life of our residents, because that's always our top priority. And I just think from time to time, we have to revisit these amendments and these ordinances to see if they still make sense. I'm sure your predecessors had the intent of reserving the quality of life and making sure that the residents of these facilities were not interrupted in their day-to-day activities. But I would be able to bless a lot more families if I were to be allowed to have those adult daycare services. A lot of times families want their loved ones to remain at home with them. They just need some place where they could drop them off while they go to work and pick them up. But I'm unable to do that even though I have the space and the resources because of this ordinance. I think that there is a purpose for the ordinance, but I think that it needs to be revisited and adjusted and amended so that we can be a blessing to more families. That's all I have.
Any questions?
I have one question.
Yes.
The persons that take care of the persons that stay in the personal care home, do they have to have a different license or anything like that? Any stipulations that you've gone through as far as adult daycare? Do you have to have a different certification, anything like that?
They don't, but typically on our staff, this is our third location, by the way. Our administrator is a nurse, and of course, the state requires background checks, so we have constantly in-house training. But the same requirements for the caregivers that for a personal care home are the same for an adult daycare center.
Do you have any experience back in the business that you're running? You say you got 3 cares. Do you have any like medical, nursing, doctor?
Well, my background is finance and accounting, but our administrator, who's also my wife, has a nursing and a medical background.
Could you tell me how many square footage is in the home? Is it upstairs, downstairs?
No, it's one flat facility. There are no stairs. I think the square footage, Scott Gator could speak on that. I don't have the number in front of me, but initially when we purchased it, it had 12 offices, a kitchen, a huge conference room. I think it was roughly around 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. Scott Gator could speak more specifically on it. And currently we're only licensed for 7 residents, and we got 4 bathrooms because one of those offices or 2 of those offices we had to revert or convert to handicap accessible bathrooms. So it's a huge facility with a limited amount of people, and that facility can be used to bless a lot more people if we could choose to just amend this ordinance.
Your parking facility, your background will take care of people coming and going?
Absolutely. It was a mental health facility, a mental health office for mental health professionals prior to us buying it, and then it was a church prior to that, and I think at one time it was the Boys and Girls Club. So it's a huge facility almost on 2 acres.
Why are you only approved for 7?
Well, initially when we purchased the building, it had 10 offices, and the state requires that certain bedrooms have to have a certain diameter in order for you to put 2 clients in. So our initial thinking was that 2 of those offices would be administrative offices, and then we would at least have 10 resident bedrooms with individual rooms. But as we got into the process, we realized that the bathrooms were an issue from an architectural standpoint. So we had to convert a few of those bedrooms into handicap accessible bathrooms, and that limited the number of bedrooms that we had.
So you would have to renovate the entire, or you can't renovate it to have more of the same people that you have there, resident people?
No, I mean, if we were to do so, we would have to do major renovations because we only have 7 bedrooms, or we would have to sacrifice one of the administrative offices and turn that into a bedroom. But currently, 7, and that's why we were only licensed for 7, because we only had the capacity for 7 beds once we had to liquidate the other 2 offices and turn those into the handicap accessible bathrooms. So now we got 7 people with 4 bathrooms. So we can service a lot more people is my point.
So what you have left are the big offices that you're speaking of?
It's not really an office, it's a huge conference room, activity room, yes. And so what we envision, when the people get dropped off for the adult daycare, that's where we have all of our activities. And then we have a huge outside area where we wanted to put a pavilion and have outside activities once it starts to get a little cooler as well. But that conference room can hold, seat at least 30 people in its current state. And I also think whoever crafts the verbiage for these amendments needs to somehow incorporate the occupancy level. In other words, if you all are so kind as to grant a change to this amendment, maybe something can be also incorporated in the verbiage where it can't exceed 50% of your current occupancy level that was determined by the fire marshal. Does that make sense? Kind of?
Is there any,
Okay.
are there any federal or state regulations that you're aware of that will change the requirements? Or I know this is just a county ordinance that you are opposing, but are you aware of any federal or states that will, as opposed to you combining these two types of services together?
I am not aware, but this is just the first step in a long journey. In order for me to fill out the state required adult daycare application, I have to have the okay from the local municipality.
Okay, so this is
So
your
once I
first
pass
step.
this journey, I'll start to attack the state.
Okay.
I do have a question, sir.
Yes.
You spoke about 24-hour care and 12-hour care. Are you talking that you do respite care at night?
Well, we can do respite care as long as it doesn't exceed our capacity level that was determined by the state.
Okay. And, yeah, that's all I
Okay.
needed.
And what I meant by that is,
Clarification.
I offer 24-hour care. So some people, the only difference is my current clients don't have the option to just get a 12-hour package, and this would allow them to do so.
You said your current clients,
Yes.
the ones that are in the personal care home?
Yes, in other words, we're open for business, so we do have residents there now. But oftentimes, people come by to inquire about availability, but they may say, well, I don't need overnight care. I just need my parents to just stay there for the 12 hours and during the day while they're at work. And unfortunately, we're not able to accommodate them because of this ordinance.
I don't know, can I ask God a question?
Yes.
Thank you. So if we cleared the ordinance for him, it's got no specification on what business it would be going in?
That is correct.
Thank you.
So that is
That's-
correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that for
That
myself.
was also gonna be my question. So let's say that he sells the business, so, because if we change this, something else can come in there that may not be desirable.
Yes, ma'am, and so this
And somebody
ordinance,
else can
this supplemental standard is across the board for any personal care home in the city of Conyers, whether that's a group, a congregate, registered, or home. And so it's all different, breaks down into the different levels of how many residents you can have living there. If this language was removed from the ordinance, that would allow, say, the home, those that are living in the house that have a personal care home in home, they'd also be allowed to have another home occupation. The other personal care home groups that we have in the city, they too would be allowed to have additional home occupations. It doesn't have to be associated business like Mr. Satine intends to do or proposes to do.
Right.
It could be something different. Like I said, it can be, I live there, my wife runs a personal care home, I'm an electrician. Well, I got my electrician van coming and going.
Right.
It could be something like that.
Right.
Just to clarify, he was proposing to operate any personal care unless proposed business provides complementary services for existing offerings. I just want to clarify that.
Well, yes, sir, and that was obviously tailored for
Right,
Mr.
right,
Satine's
right.
proposed, but
Right.
looking at the whole,
Right.
when you take that provision away, it kind of opens the gate. And that's what
That was my question.
we are a little bit concerned about, opening that gate. People who reside in personal care homes, they're there and because maybe their family could not take care of them. They're there and they rely on the operator like Mr. Satine. And not all operators are as reputable as Mr. Satine. We have researched him and saw the quality facilities that he operates. Unfortunately, we can't regulate that everybody must do the business just like him. Our ordinance doesn't, or law doesn't say
Right.
we could do that. So as far as opening that floodgate, that was our concern with making that text amendment.
So to change the ordinance for his particular business would change it for anybody else that has
Yeah.
this?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
that is correct.
Right.
And there's no way you can, and of course, if you can help me with the protocol in terms of like a special use permit, how come you can't do anything like that?
So a special use permit, if you remember, are uses that are somewhat similar and would be somewhat acceptable within a zoning district, much like a personal care home. However, they require additional extra oversight, so it reduces externalities on adjacent nearby properties. so that you're not creating additional burdens on streets, water and sewer infrastructure, schools, things of that nature. So that's what a special use permit's there to do, is to look at it, and you have those 8 specific criteria that if you meet those 8 criteria, then it shouldn't be a burden on the public, shouldn't be a burden on the neighbors or the public infrastructure. Much like what Mr. Chatine went through in 2019, his special use permit we deemed at that location, it was a mixed-use zoning district, it is a mixed-use zoning district. The situation of the lot, the location, the proximity from neighbors, it was a good fit for a personal care home. And that's why staff, we identified all those 8 criteria and said, yes, this personal care home meets those 8 criteria. Now, if you're asking, could you do a special use permit on top of another special use permit? No, ma'am. Specifically in the language, a special use permit is only for that use given. So if there's another special use permit in the MXD and Mr. Satine said, you know what, I'm done with personal care, I'm going to go do something else, making widgets, and that requires a special use permit. His application for that special use permit to make widgets would supersede the special use permit for personal care home. That was a long talk, but I was getting
No, thank you.
That makes sense.
Perfect.
Explained it well, thank you.
Can I make one more?
Yeah, you're still in public hearing, so I was just answering a question until he closes the public hearing. This is all yours, sir.
All right. I'm not suggesting, I do realize if this ordinance is amended, that it would not only apply to me, but those that come after me or those that are in the same industry. And when Scott Gaither mentioned about opening the floodgates, that can be controlled with the verbiage in which the amendment is crafted. In other words, you can incorporate something that says it has to be a personal care home group that is zoned commercially. It has to be an extension of existing services. That would prevent someone from opening a lawn service in a personal care home. So the intent needs to be, does it benefit or is it a detriment to the citizens? And we can't get caught up, or I would hope that we don't get caught up in verbiage as opposed to what the intent is. And if we want to implement some types of controls to prevent or to make sure that the intent of the amendment was actually implemented, we could merely just put words in place that prevent people from abusing any changes to the ordinance. It has to be, and that's why I use the word complementary services. But I could even get more specific and say an extension of existing services, because that type of verbiage would prevent combating businesses or other businesses that would adjust or diminish the quality of life of those residents. So I just wanted to emphasize that those floodgates can be controlled with the way the ordinance is crafted.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You say you have a total of 3 locations.
Yes.
Where are your other 2 locations at?
One in Stonecrest and one in Lithonia.
So they don't have the same restriction?
They do not.
So, but you were aware that there was a restriction in Rockdale?
I was when I initially submitted my special land use permit. It was brought to my attention.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you all.
Yeah. All right. Do we have anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right.
I have one other question for you, Scott.
Yes, ma'am.
So listening to him, who controls the verbiage? I mean, because I remember having this question about not a situation like this, but another situation. And what you were saying at that point, I think, was that you had to do maybe kind of general verbiage, or I don't know that we can be that specific that he's suggesting, and that's my question.
So when we're looking at, and if I go down a long and winding path, I apologize, and I apologize to those that are in the audience. When we're looking at ordinance text amendments, we look at what's the purpose and intent. We try to craft the language to protect the citizens of the city of Conyers and Rockdale County, the business owners, the property owners, so on and so forth. Because with zoning, you've got your purpose and intent, promote the public welfare, moral character, so on and so forth. So when we're looking at ordinance language, we have to consider those and take into consideration the overall impact. What overall impact is the? It's kind of like the law of diminished value. If the overall good of the ordinance is it serves the majority well, but a couple small portions of the population are harmed, do you put forth the greater good? Staff is just here to research and make recommendations and provide those to the planning commission and then ultimately the mayor and council. We are not perfect in writing all ordinances. I would be foolish to try to explain that to you or try to sell that to you. But when we look at ordinance language, we look at what's best for the city as a whole.
Yeah.
And we put forth that language. Obviously, there's discussion that goes on amongst planners, amongst staff, and others that look at, all right, we see it from this angle, but someone else may see it from a different angle. It's very good to have a diverse background of individuals that you discuss that with, so you gather a bigger understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. So your question about can you write a language pretty pointed and specific? Yes, ma'am, you can. But kind of like the law of physics, for every action there's equal and opposite reaction. So you have to be careful that if you write it too specific, you might not accomplish what it is that your
Absolutely.
purpose and intent was set forth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what you said the last time I asked that question about something else.
Well, at
Makes
least I'm
sense.
consistent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we now close the public hearing and board discussion. Comments, motions? I am concerned when we do this, it sets up, as Scott mentioned, sets up a precedent. We're not talking about one property. We're talking about any personal care home. And I understand the focus should be on the 24-hour care and not have those uses mixed, in my opinion.
I tend to agree with you, Steve. I hear what the owner is saying, that sometimes the letter of the law and the intent of the law can be two different things, in this case, the ordinance. But I do have a concern, and knowing that when you first brought this, you knew that this, that Rockdale had this ordinance in place, but you let it go through. That's still a concern I would have moving forward with voting for this.
Other discussion or motions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that at this time, we deny this amendment.
Okay. Motion to deny. Is there a
Second.
Second, Leslie? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not opposed. Okay. Moving on to item C2, it's ordinance 1294, request for a text amendment to section 8-7-44, table 1, residential lot requirements. The applicant, City of Conyers.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Can you remind me who seconded that motion, please?
Leslie, is that?
Thank you.
Yes.
Just
All right.
for our records, we know.
Sure. Okay.
And Dr. Bowie made the
Right.
motion. So this text amendment is a little different. This is a City of Conyers initiated text amendment. This is to the table of lot requirements for the Gateway Village. So Gateway Village is a zoning district that we know stretches down 13820 from I-20 all the way south to just below what was Seven Gables Restaurant on one side and all the way down to the former Publix on the other side. So it's made up of 3 sub-districts: the residential village, the neighborhood village, and the gateway village. And in those sub-districts, that's what identifies our uses and what's allowed there, and our lot standards. Lot standards being the size, the width, the setback requirements, so on and so forth. So currently, we're looking at, this text amendment is looking at only making a requested change to the residential village and the neighborhood village lot requirements. Currently, lot area is 10,000 square foot for each. We're requesting that the ordinance be amended to take that down to 6,000 square foot. Lot width would stay the same at 60 foot. The lot coverage would increase from 40% to 50% maximum. The front yard setbacks would stay the same. So everything would pretty much stay the same except for the lot size. Now, where we're going with this is to make the Gateway Village, those residential districts within Gateway Village for the single-family detached, make them more compatible with the zoning districts that they're near, being the mixed-use village overlay district, the tier 2 and tier 1, make them more consistent with the higher density single-family that we have. In the long term, we hope to maybe phase out some of the zoning districts that we have. And consolidate those districts. And what we're trying to do is make those, with this change, would make these districts compatible with those that we may look at phasing out. There are currently no properties have the zoning district, residential village or neighborhood village in the Gateway Village district. So no development has taken advantage of that, so we wouldn't be creating a non-conforming situation. This would just be anyone within that Gateway Village district that would to rezone to one of these districts, they would comply with the lot standards. Any questions?
Is this for more multifamily,
No, ma'am. This is for the single-family detached lots.
but then that also allows smaller lot sizes, so more homes, correct?
Well, the density would stay the same. There's a net density, City of Conyers will use a net density, and it stays the same in the Gateway Village. It would just allow the smaller lot sizes.
So I guess I don't understand.
So while your density, there's a maximum net density. Net, you have to subtract out your required roads, subtract out detention facilities, setbacks or buffers, things of that nature, and you're left with the net acre. And then there's a maximum of, I think it's 4 units per net acre. That's all you can put on that piece of property. Well, that 4 units per net acre, instead of 10,000 square foot lots, you reduce that down to 6,000. So you wouldn't grow density by reducing your lot size. A lot of times, in a lot of jurisdictions, they do base density off square foot a lot. In Conyers, we don't. We like to be a little different, and we set a maximum density, and you back that out with the net acreage or the net subtraction from things you have to subtract out. So the density would not change, just the lot size.
So the purpose of this is for consistency,
Yes, ma'am.
not, okay,
Yes,
not
ma'am.
density.
That's correct. Not density, but consistency.
Is the timing, your timing as to why you're doing it now instead of later on after these developments have been completed?
So there's no developments currently that have this zoning designation. Near the Gateway Village, there are some zoning districts that we're looking at potentially phasing out, and this would make that lot standards consistent with that phase out.
So Scott, if it's 4 units per net acre for you, and you go to 6,000, then in essence, you're creating more green space?
That is correct.
Okay.
Love it.
How does that benefit somebody purchasing the lot?
So let's talk from the development side first. So with a reduced lot size, that's reduced infrastructure cost. Your roads don't have to be as long, your water and sewer infrastructure doesn't have to be as great, your stormwater detention facilities don't have to be as large. From the buyer side, none of us in here are getting any younger. We're seeing the trends nationwide where people want smaller lots. They want to focus on their built environment within the home, within their unit. They don't want to look at a big yard. They don't want to maintain a big yard. There's still a large population that wants the big yard, and we do have zoning in Conyers that would allow larger yards. So this would allow those people who say, you know what, I'm good with 6,000 square foot, where my house is 2,200, 2,800 square foot, and I'm on a postage side lot, I'm okay with that, and that's what I desire. So from the end user, it's given more opportunity for options there to purchase.
What's going to prevent somebody, if they know that they have a certain square footage, say first floor, to just build up? You know how you're having these 3-story townhomes.
Well, there is a height limitation in the zoning district, and I think it's it's not on this chart, but I think it's total of 45 feet. So a 3-story house, if you have a 3-story single-family home, traditionally from the peak of the roof, if it's a gabled roof, to your finished floor elevation, or maybe even a basement, you're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 or 3, probably, what would you say, Marvin, 32 feet high to 38 feet high?
Flat roof, yeah.
So, you know, that's pretty standard for a single-family home if it's 3 stories. We don't see many 4 stories unless it's a basement with a 3-story above. And then those get pretty tall.
All right. Any other questions? Anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, have to ask. All right, then we'll close the public portion of the hearing. And we're now in discussion and our motions.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve this ordinance 1294 to request the text amendment.
Okay. Motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
Leslie again. Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right. Moving on to item C4. It's a preliminary plat of Eastmore Phase 1C, Eastmore Development, location Johnson Road, and lots 4.
Yes, sir. So Eastmore is a development that started many moons ago, and they are growing like weeds, and they need additional lots. These are proposing 4 additional single-family detached lots on it. So it would be, I'm sorry, you have a handout in front of you, the complete preliminary plat on 11 by 17 sheet. So on the screen is just a blow-up of just the addition. So it would extend a public street by about 140 feet, something like that, which, being that it's an extension of public utility, being the right-of-way, it does require a preliminary plat. Had this street not needed to be extended, we wouldn't be here before you tonight, but since the street has to be extended, it is public street when it becomes final. So it gains them 4 additional single-family lots. The construction out there, if anyone has driven by the Eastmore development in the last year and a half, you see that we have a wonderful mixture of townhomes and single-family detached homes. All of them are custom to semi-custom units, and they are needing additional single-family homes. So they put together this preliminary plat. Staff has reviewed this. The Water Resources has reviewed this. Fire has reviewed. Public Works has reviewed it. They've all approved the preliminary plat. If tonight the Planning Commission approves the preliminary plat, their next step is they'll submit their construction plans for the extension of this road and utilities for to service these 4 lots. The permit will be issued once those plans are approved, and they will go to work extending the street. It sounds real easy, right?
Yeah, really.
So will this affect any people that live there now, like their property? Are we trying to?
No, ma'am.
No eminent domain, okay.
No, ma'am, no eminent domain, nothing.
Okay.
The lots that are grayed, that are in dark gray that you
Yeah.
see are the 4 lots that they're adding. The lots next to it are created, so they're just adding these 4 lots.
Okay.
And this is all property that Eastmore owns and has owned for, I don't know how long it's been dirt. So they've owned it for a long time.
Okay.
Now, you have a temporary turnaround. That's, it's not a cul-de-sac.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
It is a temporary turnaround. What's there now, so if you drive down that road there now, you see the exact same thing. They're just going to extend it out 100 and some odd feet.
Is there plans to expand that then?
Yes, sir. Eventually, the old master plan, and if you look through the back, on the back page there, in order to save some trees, I only printed it back and forth. But there's an overall master plan that was approved many years ago, and I'm sorry, I'm not doing this development much justice. Marvin Flanagan has been there since the inception. He can tell you all about the formation and how it's come to be. But there's a master plan, and that master plan is what will eventually be developed. It's kind of small. We can always discuss that at a later time and show you guys what's to come.
Magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay.
Scott, are they doing like a turning lane here? I just can't figure it out. Like, are they making it where you can drive off like?
No, ma'am. That would be that recess that you see. It's a very good eye. That's on-street parking.
Okay, on-street parking.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just like if you drive through there now, you'll see that there's a lot of on-street parking for both the single-family and the townhome products.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Scott.
Oh, I have
Okay.
one more question.
Oh, you have another question?
I do. I'm
No, go ahead.
sorry.
No problem. All right.
So if we go to, and this is just clarification.
Sure.
If we go to the back of the front page, those, these lots, lot 10, 11, 12, 13, those are the new lots?
The dark gray ones? Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The lot chart. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, minimum lot requirement?
For that MXD zoning district and the conditions of zoning granted for those, they're 4,000 square foot lots.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
It's always an edification.
Well, appreciate that. All right, any other questions? Okay, all right. Now in discussion and/or motion.
I motion we accept item C4, Eastmore Phase 1C, extension of 4 new lots.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you. All right. Moving on to the item R3. It's 1716, 1726, 1736, 1980, and 1670 Lesser Road, 1630, 1632, and 1634 Farmer Road, and 1975 Sigmund Road. It's a future land use case number 2022-07, request to amend the future land use map category from high-density residential to light industrial for the development of a warehouse. And the rezoning case number 2022-14, a request to rezone from R1 single-family residential to M1 limited industrial for the development of a warehouse. And there's a number of parcel numbers, I'll just skip mentioning those. But the size is 40.009 acres. The applicant is Oakmont Pacolet Acquisitions. And this requires 2 public hearings and 2 votes, one on the future land use and one on the rezoning. All right.
Sorry about that, Chairman. I apologize, a little house cleaning. Again, as you said, this applicant is, I'm sorry, can everybody hear me? Sorry, okay. For those who do not know me, my name is Christopher Wheeler. I'm the Deputy Director for Planning and Development for Rockdale County. So, again, thank you. Again, this case that's being heard this evening is applicant by Oakmont Acquisitions. They're asking to rezone 9 parcels for a total of 40 acres for the completion of a warehouse. Again, just to reiterate the addresses again for everybody's record, the properties are at 1716, 1726, 1736, 1980, and 1670 Lester Road, 1630, 1632, 1634 Farmer Road, and 1975 Sigmund Road. Again, to kind of do a summary of the application, again, the applicant is looking to develop an industrial warehouse of 410,200 square foot warehouse development. The subject property is located in an existing industrial area. The property abuts industrial zone properties to the northwest, to the west and southern portion of the property. Again, the property is located along the minor arterial road, Sigmund Road. Again, it does have future land use designation of high density, but there are no high density development within the immediate area. This is just a frame of reference to let everybody know where it is. Again, the subject properties are located along Farmer Road and Sigmund Road. Again, this is the conceptual site plan that applicant submitted. Again, I want to kind of highlight a few things. As you look, again, access to this property will be only coming off Sigmund Road, will not be coming off Farmer Road. The applicant has indicated as well that they are going to be on septic, as well as they highlighted in the green area located to the southwestern portion of the property. Also, it does abut a residential R1 district zoning property, again, located to the northwest of the property, but there is a utility easement along that property line, so they have to stay clear of that. There is an additional 75-foot buffer required for light industrial or limited industrial abutting residential, but they still have the extra coverage of the utility easement as well. Again, the future land use does say high density, but again, just to let you know, the area is located within an industrial area. Again, look, as you can see on the map, properties located to the west, to the south and west of the property are industrial and office institutional. Again, this is the current zoning map. Again, everything abutting the property is zoned limited industrial, located again to the west and southern portion of the property. At this time, I would like to kind of remind the board that, again, when you're discussing your recommendations for this application, you have 4 choices. Again, you can recommend approval of this application as presented by staff, recommend approval as presented by the applicant. You can recommend approval at a lesser degree, a lesser zone intense, or a lesser geographic area, or you can just outright deny. The way you base your decision on is, again, the standard review standards that are located in your staff report. Staff has reviewed those and provided its technical analysis of those criteria. So therefore, staff does recommend approval with 10 conditions for the applicant. I do ask that you withhold your questions until the applicant has presented its presentation, because your questions may be answered in their presentation. Okay, and the applicant is here.
Okay, thank you, Chris. We'll now hear from the applicant.
It seemed like a good seat when I got here, but a little hemmed in now. Let me hand something.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Den Webb, 1105 West Peachtree Street, Atlanta, 30309, here on behalf of Oakmont Industrial Group. Before I begin, let me introduce Tom Cobb. Tom, raise your hand, please. Tom is a senior vice president with Oakmont. If you don't know the company, Oakmont is an Atlanta-based industrial developer. They were founded in 1996. They handle projects all over the country, but they focus on Georgia and the Southeast. I'm going to use a handout today to try and sort of speed my presentation along, but you'll notice the first page is a survey of the site. As was just mentioned, the property is in the northeast quadrant of Sigmund Road and I-20. It's actually about 0.8 of a mile east of I-20. It also has frontage on Farmer Road and Lester Road. And you guys may know that both Sigmund Road and I-20 are part of the Atlanta Regional Commission's Atlanta Strategic Truck Route Master Plan. So that's a designated freight corridor for the Atlanta metro area, and this property is directly upon it. As you heard, there are 9 tracts at issue. The total acreage is actually 49 acres, and there are 5 single-family detached homes on the property now, but 4 are vacant. If you've been by that site recently, those homes are, or most of the homes are not in good condition. If you turn to page 2, you'll see a copy of the site plan that was just previewed. As you heard, the proposal is for a 410,200 square foot warehouse. 7,000 square feet of that is office space. The building will be tilt panel construction. It will be 50 feet high or less. There will be shop front glass in 2 of the corners, and you'll see that what I'm talking about on a rendering here in a second. But there are 2 access points. They're actually on Farmer Road. So if you look at the site plan, the 2 access points are on Farmer. The one northernmost is for vehicular traffic, for folks who might work at the warehouse. The one to the south is actually for trucks. We are meeting or exceeding every development requirement. We're required by code to have 206 parking spaces. We're providing 258. We're meeting or exceeding landscaping, lighting, buffers, stormwater, impervious surface, and so on with this proposal. If you look at page 3, you'll see a rendering of a representative building. You'll notice that shop front glass that I mentioned in the corner, that is office space. There'll actually be 2 areas like that on this site. There are a couple points I want to mention. They're sort of affirmed in the staff report, which we got this afternoon. As you heard, the staff goes through the criteria in the code and provides its analysis, and it's confirmed several points that I had wanted to make tonight. Number 1, we're consistent with what's in the area now. If you turn to page 4 of my exhibit, you'll see the zoning map, and this is what Chris just went over. We've got industrially zoned properties and industrially used properties north, south, east, and east of this site. There is a residential property to the west. You can see our site outlined in blue, and you see that green to the west. That has a residential zoning, but it's not being used residentially, at least in the traditional sense. That's actually the Rockdale County Youth Detention Center, so it's basically a jail next to us to the west. There is one home in the northwest corner of the site, or northwest of our site. As Chris mentioned, there's a 125-foot Georgia Power easement between that property and ours, but more importantly, our building is going to be about 300 feet from the property line, so it's going to be a football field away from the property line, so there'll be a significant spacing between our site and that one home. There are very few homes on Lester Road, if you've been over in that area recently. By my count, between Farmer Road and Plunkett Road, there are only 3. And one of those homes, I believe, is part of an assemblage just north of us that's under contract for another industrial user. We think that this development is also consistent with what the county envisions for this area in the future. If you turn to the last page of my handout, you'll see the future land use map. All that gray is light industrial. It surrounds us, again, east, south, west, and to some extent north. So, this is, as you guys know, the future land use map is really the result of sort of a long process with the community to identify, what uses they want where for the next 25 years. And so this area is certainly projected by the county to continue to develop in an industrial manner as it obviously has in the past. I think the last point I want to emphasize is we think there are a lot of public benefits to this development. Obviously, we'll increase the tax base significantly, we'll provide local jobs, and we're going to put this property into a use which I think is consistent with what is in the area now. What it's basically allowed for at this point are single-family detached homes. And so you're talking about a subdivision in an area surrounded by industrial uses next to a jail, and I think it hasn't been developed in that way, and I don't think it's realistic to think that it will be developed that way in the future. When we started this process, we met with the county early on. We were asked to reach out to the community, and we did the best we could with that. There's a fellow that we were directed to, Coach Stroud, Cleveland Stroud. We reached out to him, and he had apparently told my partner, Kathy Zickert, he didn't object to this proposal. He had suggested we reach out to someone else, a Dr. Young. I think I saw her in the crowd tonight. We wrote her a letter asking to meet and didn't hear anything. We also hosted a community meeting about 10 days ago. So we invited basically somewhere between 30 and 40 of the property owners around our property, those closest, to come and hear about our proposal. Only one person came, a homeowner on the other side of Lester Road. I don't think she's here tonight, but she was in full support of our request. So, we've done the best we can with that. certainly are interested to hear from others on this proposal. The last thing I want to address is the staff report. We just got this today, and of course, as you heard, the recommendation is for approval, subject to 10 conditions. We're generally okay with those conditions. There's just one that I'd ask you to consider modifying, and that's condition 1B. It says the site shall be restricted to a warehouse facility not to exceed 410,200 square feet in size and permitted accessory uses. We're just asking for a little bit of flexibility on the size. Once you get out there and start engineering this and get into, particularly in areas with rock, there may be changes to the site plan. We'd like a little bit of leeway, 5 or 10% on the size of the building, up or down. So that our request would be that you consider allowing some flexibility on the size as opposed to just a hard number. I think I'm going to stop there. I'm happy to take any questions you have. I'll reserve my time, and we'd ask for your recommendation approval on both applications. Thank you.
Have you done a traffic study?
We were required to do a traffic study as part of the LDP process,
Right,
so
but-
that's it. We have not to this point. There's a condition,
Right,
and so obviously we agree with that condition, and to the extent that roadway improvements are required on Farmer, Sigmund, or anywhere else, we'll certainly follow the recommendation of the traffic study, but we're required to do one as part of the LDP, and we will.
so at this time, you have no idea what kind of traffic?
Well, we've
Yes,
provided trip gen numbers as part of our application, so we have provided that data, but in terms of, a more comprehensive, true
Okay.
traffic study, we've not done that.
How many trucks will be coming in and out?
I don't remember the numbers exactly. I believe that the AM and PM peak numbers were around 120, but I don't want to swear to that. It's in the application.
Weekday trips are 144.61 plus or minus. Trips during a weekday AM peak hours is 124.
That's what I was referring to.
And 132 during weekday PM peak hours. So total on the off hours are 12:05.
Okay. Well, obviously, the peak hours are the critical, because that's the busiest time on the roadway.
Depends which way you go out.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they're going to go out to Farmer Road to the light. That's,
Yeah, but they're gonna go out Farmer Road to which light? To Sigmund? Is that what you're saying?
correct, yes.
Okay, so what's to prevent them from turning the other way? Because there are homes down there, and that's where my concern lies.
Well, certainly there are things we could do to control the movement of the trucks coming onto and
Right,
off of the
that's-
property, and that's something, if you guys wanted to add as a condition, we would be
Right,
agreeable to.
that's one of my concerns.
Okay, well, that's something that could be addressed in the
I'll
zoning
front
condition.
that.
How many doors are you anticipating? How many delivery doors are you anticipating? You said that's
It's in there.
120 trucks, but because there's a development on Old Covenant Highway, and there's about 60 doors on this warehouse. And that's in competition less than a mile away from this facility you're speaking of. So if everybody's going out to I-20, so I'm just asking, if that has 60 doors and the infrastructure hasn't changed, what's your anticipation of the number of doors on your warehouse facility?
I don't know, Tom, whether you can answer that? Something comparable.
How does this traffic affect Lester Road? Because you're saying Sigmund Road and Farmer Road, but on here, there's something about Lester Road. So talk to me about the Lester Road.
Right, so if you go back to, let's go back to page 2 of the handout in the site plan. Lester Road is north of our site, right? So it basically parallels our northern property line. We don't have a curb cut there. There is absolutely no reason to go to Lester Road. If everyone's going to be coming and going from I-20, again, if there are things we can do in a lot of ways, frankly, to control the direction of traffic, we can direct the trucks coming onto the site to use a certain route. We can put, traffic implements in place, and we can also, agree to a zoning condition that will
You
certainly,
can limit gross vehicle weight.
that will also, certainly verify that we're going to do what we're saying we're going to do.
Because there's a lot of, within the area, because of the dense truck traffic now, they're already using Rock Bridge, and there's nothing that has been done about that. They're using Rock
Right.
Bridge, Lake Rockaway, and you got the
Irwin
damage to the
Bridge.
roads now because of the industrial. It's just, nothing has been done to the infrastructure in this area, and nothing is planned to be done to the infrastructure to take on this capacity.
So, the good news is, at least in terms of the intersection of Sigmund and Farmer, we've got to do a traffic study. And there's every reason to think that they're going to recommend that we make some changes to improve the intersection. And so that will be an infrastructure improvement that I think that will result from this. I believe there are some plans on Sigmund between Farmer and I-20 to make some improvements as well. It's been a while
There's
since.
plans all the way down to 138.
Right, so I think things are coming.
But Farmer's tiny. It's a little road.
So tell me, if you had planned 2 community meetings and you only had one person to show up, how do you know how the community feel about this?
Well, I guess we don't. I mean, what we know is what we've been able to find out. So
And that was just for one person?
Yeah, one person who, I mean, there's so few homes there, but like I said, we invited somewhere between 30 and 40, I don't remember the exact number of the property owners all the way around to come talk to us, and we only heard from one. So the only thing we can do is put it out there, right?
I see. How did you announce it?
With a letter.
A letter?
The letter, okay. So, okay.
I just, one question, and help me understand this, because it's zoned for high density, but in your thing, you said this type of facility is what they're expecting in this area, but it's zoned for high density on the future land use map. So these two purposes seem like they're conflicting.
Well, I mean, that's a good point, and that's something the staff refers to in its report, that maybe the future land use map and the zoning designation for this property really aren't in sync with what's happening out there. You know, this area is certainly heavily industrial. It's trending more towards industrial. Like I said, there's property under contract just across the road for industrial use. I think there was a zoning just to our east recently for industrial use. So,
Yeah, I can.
all right, well, I'll defer to Chris.
So even though the area has been zoned for, has been designated as high density, as the county has kind of progressed and developed over time, that has not been happening. As you can see, to the west of the property is clearly industrial. To plan or to try to promote high-density residential right next to industrial would be irresponsible on the county's part, because again, clearly you want to have a clear transition between industrial and residential, and right now that's not happening. It's developed over time just organically, where it's just industrial at this point in time.
Thank you, Chris, because I just wondering, what is he referencing when he said it is zoned for
Yes, ma'am.
industrial? Which type of map is he referencing?
what he's trying to kind of relay is saying that even though the area has a future land use designation of high density, it only makes sense for it to be, from a technical standpoint, for it to be industrial, because everything else around it has turned into industrial. It's because again, organically over time, not something because what the county has done, is just because it's just turned into that, because as we kind of evolve into more of a e-commerce, where we want to get our goods faster, and so warehouses has become a popular thing, and so therefore access to I-20 has been a real pushing point for some people. Amazon is pretty much the biggest proponent of that, especially if you want to get your package within a day of time.
But the biggest complaint is they're coming in the midst of residential neighborhoods. And that's
Yes,
been,
ma'am. Yeah, well, and that's the thing is you want to do, so if the board chooses to recommend approval or denial, whoever you choose to, you have the option to recommend conditions onto it to try to mitigate that as a reference point that says, hey, we understand that this has changed over time, but we want to protect the existing residential that's within the local area. Again, that is up to you. That's within your recommending powers to do that.
And we understand, it's just, and I understand, I'm a big shopper, online shopper, and I like my stuff fast, but I don't want them in my back door.
Oh,
either.
yes, ma'am, I understand. Yes, ma'am, I understand. Yes, ma'am.
Look, wait a minute before you leave.
Yes,
Do we have any information, has the DOT done any kind of study that we could draw from?
Not at this time. Again, the traffic study, they have not reviewed the traffic study, so depending on if this recommended approval, they would do an in-depth review of the application, and then they would basically will say, hey, there's certain traffic calming recommendation that we want to include, the deceleration, we want to say, hey, you might need to add this or you might need to add that. I can't speak specifically to what they will be looking for, but I'm assured that they will be reviewing this intensely.
Thank you.
What's the reason for it being on the septic?
Well, the reason I say, they sent out, well, from the letter that they sent over to Water Resources, there wasn't available water for them, sewage for the capacity for them to be able to tap into, so they had to go to the septic route.
And that's going to be like an industrial septic system?
Yes, ma'am.
And as far as the detention pond, the existing lake, is that a natural lake?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I'll have to get that to be back with you on that one.
25 years at least.
And does the detention pond that's adjacent to the septic have a culvert that goes to the?
Yes, ma'am. Stormwater will make sure that whatever is being released will be interfering with the septic. Environmental health will be a part of that as well to review this part because they want to make sure their septic lines are clear of any obstructions and so forth.
And who's going to monitor that?
With environmental health. Environmental health will review and say this is what you need to be doing, and then it'll be up to the applicant to monitor that. Go ahead, sir.
Let me add one more thing on the septic. So we are working with Rockdale County right now. We don't want to be on septic, honestly, and that's a temporary solution for this project, but our intent is to get off it as quickly as possible, and we're trying to understand, the options. I think, there is some issue, and I don't know if issue is the right word, but there's something between DeKalb County and Rockdale that's limited some of the capacity, but we are working hard to get rid of it, and this septic solution is not a permanent one. It's not a good one for us, but the good news is this is a warehouse, not a manufacturing facility. So the only septic type waste will be from the restrooms inside the facility. In terms of the lake, we're not touching the lake.
Thank you.
Do you know how much noise this would generate and impact on the nearby residential properties?
I haven't done a sound study, if that's the
Right.
question.
Right.
Like I said, I've been out there quite a few times. I know there is residential area, but I wouldn't call it nearby. I think you're talking half a mile pretty much in north or west or east, really, before you get to a house. There are one or two little, like I said, there's a house in the northwest corner, and there's, I think, one more on Lester between us and Plunkett. We're really not that close to the homes. But I don't know the answer to that. There is a noise ordinance, I assume. We certainly would be bound to that.
Okay, all right.
We have people to speak on
Any
this.
other questions? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had one.
Oh,
As far
okay.
as the line of sight, I know you were talking about the distance from the nearest home, but you're 50 feet high. Have you discussed any buffers?
So we are required to have a zoning buffer on the west side of the property. So if you go back to this drawing here, we've got 300 feet from the edge of our building to the property line. There's a house somewhere over here. That house is about 30 feet below us, so there's going to be a slope. We're going to plant that slope. We're required to put in a zoning buffer if it's landscaped. We are.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right, we have people signed up to speak. We'll hear from them now.
The first person to speak is Dr. Linda Akins-Young.
This form, I guess. Is this form?
Oh, is she for or against?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Linda Akins-Young, and I reside at 1869 Farmer Road, Conyers. Good evening, members of the Planning Board, Rockdale County and City of Conyers staff, others gathered here for the betterment of Rockdale County, Conyers, Georgia. As always, it is with regret that circumstances have made it mandatory that I stand here this evening to address the board about this agenda item. Item R03, Future Land Use Case 2022-07, and item R03, Rezoning Case 2022-14. Both of these is to rezone, the purpose of this is to rezone 49 acres from high-density residential, single-family residential, to industrial for the purpose of placing trucking warehouse truck stop on these 49 acres. I am vehemently opposed to this rezoning request, and so are many other residents of our Farmer Lester Road communities. With those who are in opposition to this that are here with us this evening, please stand.
Okay, right. If you could please address us. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted them to stand. Would you tell them to stand?
We got it, thanks, good.
Tell them to sit now.
I don't want to talk to nobody I'm not supposed to talk to.
You have to tell them to sit now.
My time is going by, y'all, so let me talk.
Yeah.
Rockdale County and its citizens spent an inordinate amount of time and energy developing what we thought would be our Rockdale County land use plan for the county. At the time of its original development, the intention was for the plan to be followed by the citizens of Rockdale, by the public, and by private groups. It even says that this plan is established as the official policy of the county designated land uses. It is for that reason that I do not understand why at least once or twice each year our neighborhood residents have to come to our elected and appointed officials begging to be able to live in our neighborhoods in peace without further encroachment by industry and the like. I have noticed that recently every place you go in Rockdale County you see a red and white sign. It has the title at the top that says public notice. The content of the sign can't be read unless you take your life into your hands and stop and get out to read it. So it's not informing us of anything because we can't see it.
Please, let's not have any comments in the audience. Thank you.
We oppose the proposed rezoning request before you because of safety. It would literally destroy our neighborhood, even though the applicant doesn't think anybody lives there. I mean, you know, we people, we live there. It will put our lives in danger, the lives of our children, neighbors, friends in harm's way. The proposed location for this gigantic warehouse truck stop is our only route into and out of our neighborhood. Not only will trucks be traveling our street, but trucks will be parked on the sides of the street when they're waiting for their bay arrival times, presenting even more danger to our residents. The idea of a truck stop being built in a residential area is actually sickening. Would you approve a request to rezone your street to build a warehouse truck stop? We oppose the rezoning because of the noise and the pollution that will come. Having 49 acres of trucks going and coming all day and all night will bring to our neighborhood. How are we expected to sleep at night or work in our yards or enjoy our yards during the day with noise and pollution that this will bring? We oppose the rezoning because of the impact it will have on our streets. We already have dump trucks and extensive through traffic that use our streets as their route and have literally destroyed the pavement, making it dangerous for cars to travel for potholes. If this request is granted, keeping our cars aligned will become a joke. We oppose this rezoning because it violates all aspects of the Rockdale County land plan use. It appears that Rockdale County no longer values its citizens. We've been in the neighborhood for 5+ generations, but Rockdale appears to be more interested in large warehouses and multifamily housing facilities taking over our communities and not the residents. My question is why? Why is this? Do we have staff in Rockdale out there recruiting this type of development? Or is it that the word has gotten out that Rockdale will kick its citizens to the curb for these types of developments? My other question is, would this by chance be the same company that tried to rezone 47.76 acres on Rock Ridge Road just a few months ago? I did not remember to check on this, but I would like an answer to that question. Rockdale County residents, especially those of color, you need to be aware that industry might be looking for approximately 50 acres in your neighborhood soon. Thank you. In addition to that, I'd like to make a couple of other comments that were not in my prepared comments. I don't know one person that got an invite to a meeting. Not one that has told me, okay? I did get a letter from a lawyer a few months ago, but to be honest, I'm an educator and operate funeral homes. I haven't had time to call anybody to talk about something I'm opposed to, okay? And the other thing is that someone said that Cleveland Stroud, Coach Stroud said that he had no objection Because Straub doesn't even live over there on Farmer Lester and Road. So I guess he doesn't have any objection. I have trouble believing that Coach actually said that. But if he did, I will be the first to talk to him about that. Because we just finished helping him make sure that the same thing didn't happen in his neighborhood. I appreciate very much you all giving me the opportunity to speak. As you very well know, I'm a lifelong resident of Rockdale County. This strikes deep with me. And I appreciate and hope and pray that you will support our opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have next.
So just to let everybody know that there's 3 minutes and 19 seconds left.
Okay.
So next person would be Ms. Roberta Collins.
Hi, everyone. Hello. I have three minutes? Okay, let me hurry up. Okay. I am a Lester descendant. I live at 1345 Lester Road. This road it's a lot to our family. My grandfather and my grandmother bought that land. Then someone sold their property. Then that thing we knew that was a Lithonia Lightning. Now there's a Curity. Then there's a 350 warehouse over there, 1350, that's the address. Every day, we hear truck noise. Our mailboxes have gotten torn down for oversized loads trucks. We can't sleep at night. We can't walk the street. Years ago, we could walk the street, to get exercise. My mom, 95 years old, asked me the other day, won't you just take a walk down the street? I said, no, I want to get killed. Because they run the cars and the people who drive those vehicles are speeding. So we're putting our lives at risk. So if you all put another warehouse around us, I don't think, my generation, you see how old I am now. I got grandkids, we got children who love our land, who want to be a part of our property, our land. But we keep letting warehouses come in and factories come in. We don't know if we're a neighborhood, we just consider just a road. So please consider that there's a lot of hard sweat, tears went into Lester Road. And don't forget us. That's all I have to say. 3 minutes up, Mr.
Thank you.
I remember you. 1345.
All right. How much time we have left now?
Give me a second. I got. Somebody said they remember me, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm sorry. Just joking. So there's 1 minute and 21 seconds left. Mr. Albert Tart is next.
First of all, I am also opposed to this grant, and so is the neighborhood. The other thing that we are greatly concerned about is that there were signs out there, and the signs only referenced Sigmund Road. And every time we turn around, it's something involving Lester Road. All right? If that is the case, then we have a traffic nightmare coming ahead, and it's already a nightmare. When people are trying to get out now from, let's say, from Plunkett up to Old Covington Highway, it's a nightmare. And if you go the opposite direction where the road is curvy, it's a nightmare that way because you're going out to a main road. So nothing was referenced about Lester Road until we got the agenda. And we noticed one of the addresses on there was like 1980. I don't know if anyone has done the research on that, but that is that is a great problem for us. Because if you come out Plunkett Road and you make a left, you can locate a 1980 that direction. And then if you come out Plunkett Road and you go to the right, the first home is 1760, so we know that's 17 series. So we're not sure if some kind of confusion occurred along that.
I'm sorry, time has ended, but the chair, I would like to ask if you could extend time we have one more person that would like to speak, if you could extend time for them, and we'll extend time for the applicant as well.
Yes, that's acceptable. There's a lot of people.
How much time would you like to add on?
Normally, we've added 5 minutes in the past. So.
Okay, 5 minutes, yes,
Well,
sir.
I don't really have a lot of things to say. I think just about everything has been said that you need to know about the Lester Road business proposal. We are definitely we're definitely objecting this particular entity coming in because pretty soon from the multifamily, single family density, it'll become all occupational, and it's about to join that way. And we're concerned, and as for the gentleman was saying, a community meeting, we never heard of that. No one on my side heard of anything about a community meeting. We were not contacted, and we were there. They have all their addresses, all the information. No one has heard anything about a community meeting. And most of all, we're greatly concerned about the transportation situation because it's only going to get worse. And we would highly recommend that you review all of the measures that have come up and stick with us on not recommending this project for our community. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Okay. Appreciate it. We have one more person signed up.
Yes, Chair, it's Miss Karen McClinic, and she has a total of 3 minutes and 41 seconds left.
Good evening. My name is Karen McClinic, and I live at 1845 Kings Row in Royal Lake Estates. I won't need much time because the things that have been said already, I agree, I'm in total agreement with all of that. We were here just a few short months ago addressing the same issue. Different company, just different location on Lester Road, but the same issue. I don't know who was invited to the meeting, but none of us heard anything about this meeting. Again, the signs didn't say anything about Lester Road. If it was not for a resident from Farmer Road, we would know nothing about this. Again, we're a residential area. We have families, we have children, and Lester Road is already somewhat unsafe. It's a short, windy road. And you're talking about putting more, another industrial complex on Lester Road. It just would destroy our community. Already, Plunkett Road is already full of trucks. We can't go that's the shortest way, the easiest way to get to I-20, to get to Covington Highway. We can't even take that anymore because of all of the trucks that are there. So a lot of us have been going down Lester Road to Farmer just to get to I-20. Well, if you put this there, we won't even be able to do that. We will be boxed into our community. It's just an unsafe proposal. Just 120 trucks, 132 trucks, whatever the number was, I can't even imagine that many trucks being in that area. The noise, the pollution, the safety. We just cannot have this kind of facility in our area. We're just, I don't know who was invited. We're just a few, in walking distance really from this location. So I don't know how we were not informed. I don't know how we were not invited to the meetings. I'm not sure, but this whole thing would ruin our residential area. We've tried hard to keep Lester Road residential. We know there's industrial area on Old Covington, on Plunkett, on Sigmund, but Lester Road itself, we have tried hard to keep that residential. And we ask that you vote no for this proposal.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. All right. At this time, we will hear from the applicant for rebuttal.
Let's talk about it. Let me start by putting a couple documents in the record. The first is the email from Coach Stroud. And I'll dispute the relevant part. This development will not be opposed by me. I also went back and looked, the letter that my partner sent to Dr. Young was dated July 22. That was an invitation just to talk. It was an explanation of what we want to do, an invitation to talk. And as you heard, we did not get a response to that. Here's the letter we sent to the community. You know, I actually looked up some distances today. I mean, it sounds easy when you talk about having a community meeting, but it's hard to figure out where to draw the line. Kings Row, where the lady mentioned she lives, is half a mile to our west. That's property line to driveway at Kings Row. Dr. Young lives 4/10 of a mile up north. Again, we did reach out to her, but you know, we had to pick a radius. You know, there's a limit to how far we can go. I mean, where do you stop it? You know, quarter mile, half a mile, a mile. I'm certainly willing to meet with neighbors now. I mean, I think some of these issues that they talk about, which primarily seem to do with the intersection, we can deal with. But, you know, again, there was no intent to exclude anybody. We just had to draw a line somewhere. And as I mentioned, right around the property, there just aren't that many homes. You got to go about half a mile west, you got to go about half a mile north or half a mile east to actually hit a house. So, again, we're willing to meet and have a conversation. There's always something to be gained from that. Just to touch on a few points that were raised, there is no truck stop here. This is not a truck stop, it's a truck warehouse. In terms of the land use plan, again, if you look at the last page of my handout, that is a copy of the future land use map for this area. You know, this is not a static document. It's something it's reviewed every 5 years and changed as necessary based on development patterns and what's happening on the ground. And as you heard from staff, you know, there's certainly a sense that this needs to change. If you look at the area south of Lester Road, everything's industrial except for our donut hole. I mean, there's an area of orange here, which is our site, and an area of green, or excuse me, blue, which is the jail, the sheriff's office, and the juvenile detention facility. So, but for this donut hole, every single tract south of Lester Road is industrial, and that's sort of our point. We're not trying to extend the industrial beyond Lester Road. We're not going east, north. We're not pushing it up further. In fact, if you know Farmer Road, between our property and where Dr. Young lives, there is a ton of industrial there already. So we're not trying to push it into a new area. We're just trying to fill in an area that just doesn't make sense on the future land use map based on what's on the ground now.
Please.
Let's see. Impact on streets was raised. Again, you know, we've agreed to a traffic study where we'll try and understand what the street impact is, not just at the intersection of Sigmund and Farmer, but all around. I mean, you guys know how traffic studies work. They'll tell you to look at different intersections within a certain radius of the site, measure, you know, the impact of your development on existing traffic, quantify the existing traffic, and make changes to make things better. So certainly that would be part of this process, and if there are problems that need to be dealt with that exist now or that we may create, we'll be certainly required to address those. Let's see. Someone mentioned signs. You know, those are put up by the county. I know there's a sign on Lester Road because I was out there the other day and I saw it. To my knowledge, the signage was done correctly on Farmer, Lester, and Sigmund Road. There was a comment about Lester Road, you know, being unsafe, and for the folks who live up there. We don't have an access point on Lester Road. If you look at our site plan, we don't want a driveway there. We're not proposing a driveway there. It doesn't make sense to us. We do not want trucks traveling in that route. And again, there are a variety of things we can do and there are things you can do to keep the trucks off. It is our intent to not use that roadway, and if you want to put restrictions on our use of it, we're perfectly fine with it. I guess my last point is, you know, this. I mean, I was thinking about this. I drove through Kings Row, right? It's a nice newer development. You know, but it's a development that was put in an industrial area. Now, I think there's a dividing line of Lester Road. South of Lester Road, you know, it is pretty much industrial. North, I suspect it'll stay a little bit more residential where they are. But, I mean, there's always a tension when you have residential in an industrial area. And I think at least in that instance, the industrial came first. So I do understand it. We were aware of it. We're trying to minimize and mitigate our impact. And again, if there are folks who want to have a more conversation on this, we're open to doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're now in public meeting portion is closed. We're now in board discussion.
I have a question. Chris, at the beginning of this, you said something about the light industrial that's there now.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, but it looks like the zoning is residential?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
What's the, help me with
So
that?
again, so there's two things. So you have your future land use category, which is an area where the county has identified they want that area to look a certain way, in the future years to come. That's what they desire they want to be. And then you have your regular base zoning category, which is your residential. That tells you how big your lots can be, how small your lots can be. There's a different variety of categories when it comes to residential. What we have here now is you have residential abutting against light industrial. That's where the conflict is, because again, those are two completely different types of uses. One is heavy, industrial use, and then you have a really low impact type of use. What the applicant is stating is that this area has transformed over time, no fault in the county owned, but just organically it's turned into more of an industrial area. That property itself would be very hard to develop in residential, because nobody wants to buy homes, especially already in established industrial area. That's what he's relaying, and so forth.
So is that what our future land use proposal says that is?
So right now, currently, the future land use map shows that as high density residential. It shows that it's currently right now. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But you just made an important point, and like you said, nobody wants to buy property within an industrial area.
Right.
But these people have owned property.
Well,
that's already there.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Well, again, that is the challenge that's the reason why, as the gentleman said, it's important for it to update the comprehensive plan every 5 years, because again, it is no fault to the residents or to the current staff as we sit here that is turned into industrial. So again, it is pretty much up to the planning commission and the board's choice to determine if you guys want to keep pushing that, what's actually happening right now, how this was transformed organically, or just say, no, we don't want to do that.
How close is the other warehouse to this, where this one is?
It's abutting the property.
See?
Yeah, so again, there's to the northwest is that single family home that I don't believe anybody's living in, but again, the property touches industrial areas, and so forth. So again, it's literally touching other industrial parts and office institutional zone stuff as well.
Right, okay.
When will they review the map again, if you said every 5 years?
Well, we are scheduling to make that review beginning of this fall.
This fall?
Yes, well, so we're going to in preparation, and then that takes a year's time to review everything.
Who's on that committee?
Well, we haven't determined all that yet as well, but we'll be planning. There'll be hearings, there'll be notifications, signs, and there'll be plenty of meetings to discuss that.
Because I don't think I heard any of the community people say that they did not want a business there. That what they said, they want this business because of traffic, the impact of traffic, the safety, so I didn't hear anybody say nothing.
Yes, ma'am.
Just not this, okay.
In your rezoning request, will the property, does it have a reasonable economic use as currently zoned? And you said, or whoever wrote it, not R1. But the question is, does it have a reasonable economic use as what the comprehensive land use plan recommends, high-density residential?
Again, I would say at this current time, probably not, because again, it identifies future land use as high density, so multifamily, townhomes, and so forth. Again, you'd be very hard pressed to find somebody to it's the one thing to have a house and everything built over time, but to knowingly go next to an industrial area, it'd be hard pressed to believe somebody would want to buy any property there as well. Again, it'd be foolish if to promote that, because again, the uses are totally different. Again, there is a buffer that needs to be between the industrial and residential. Now, I want to make a point out. If a developer comes in and redevelops that residential area, there is no buffer between them. Because again, the industrial is already there. So there's no buffer in between the industrial and the residential, because the residential development is not existing at this point in time. So if this property wanted to turn into a subdivision or so forth, there's no buffer, there's no required buffer between them and the industrial area, because again, the residential is coming last.
Well, we did have a situation where the townhomes near BJ's, they abut BJ's, before you were here. And they came afterwards, but there was a buffer there and a berm there, and they are that's also in an industrial area. So there is some
That's
precedent.
that's presuming if they go through a rezoning process. But if it's just straight, I want to develop the land as currently as it is, again, there's no mechanism right now to do a buffer. Because again, they could do a buffer, but again, that buffer would be on the residential side, not the industrial side.
Right.
Yeah, but that could be recommended if someone wanted to use that at a property as a residential.
I mean, they can if they want to. They could try to be a selling point to them if they want to. But again, you're limiting the use of your property to have a negative impact because you're located next to an industrial area.
But the concern really isn't the business.
Can you recommend that they do have a buffer? Because that can be a recommendation.
I can recommend that the developer could create a buffer, but I can't hold them to it because again, it's not in the code. Because again, it's a residential development.
Yeah, gotcha.
But the issue really isn't the business, so to speak, it's really the traffic getting to the business.
It is.
I mean, are there some, any type of studies that they've done? I know that you're waiting on the traffic study.
Yeah, well, I mean, the traffic study would be one to tell us the most about what type of recommendations they could, they would need to make improvements on. That would be the key thing.
And we don't have that?
No, not at this point in time, no.
And that's the problem that we're going to discuss later, not having the traffic study at an earlier stage.
Yes, sir.
That's for further discussion later, but we can't talk about traffic impact because we don't know it.
And that's been problematic consistently with a lot of the cases that come up.
Yes.
Because when the residents are talking about traffic and we can't address that, then we don't know what that looks like.
Again, as the chairman indicated, we will talk about that discussion later on. Like, I don't want to kind of get off track regarding this application. So, but we will, like I said, chairman, we will talk about that at another point.
Okay.
Right.
I
Okay.
just have two questions. You said there's two property owners here. Could you just break out how much is 40 acres in all? And
It's actually, I'm sorry, that's a typo. It's just 49 acres in all, sorry.
it's 49 acres in all, and each one owned equally, or just, one owned in acres and the other, and they just combine?
Yeah, so
these two?
in your package, you'll see a list of the property owner's signature. It's a thick of them. I do not know the property owners by the top of my head, but there's a property owner signature from all property owners that signed, who agree that they want this property to go through the rezoning process. So all of them have been vetted and gone through that.
Because, just the FYI, around Lake Capri, Rock Bridge, the bridge went out because they use that. The trucks use it all the time. These industrial sites, they use, it's a compliance requirement, and there's nobody to regulate where these truck goes. They go anywhere to make a drop off, and that bridge stayed out for 2 or 3 years.
I'm sure there's some form of regulations, because I would be foolish to believe there's no regulations when it comes to this. I'm sure, I do not know at the top of my head, but staff is willing to kind of, look into that. And I'm sure there are regulations that the Department of Transportation has as well when it comes to these types of developments and so forth. And I assure you that they will be reviewing this if it's been approved through the LDP process, to make sure everything, that they have a negative, not a negative, but a minimum or non-existent impact on the surrounding community, especially the residential area.
The challenge is not that the regulations are not in writing. The challenge is that the regulations are not
police.
Yeah, you can't hold them to it. So nobody's monitoring the regulations. I think that's the issue.
Again, that's something that's currently out of my purview, but again, staff is willing to look into that to find out more information for now, if this case and other cases as well.
Thank you, Chris.
We're still in commission discussion. And our motions. And our motion.
I'm sorry. I also want to remind the
Yes.
board that you have 4 options again. 4 options: either recommend approval, either as the applicant intended, denial of this application, approve with the recommended conditions from staff, or approve at a lesser degree or lesser geographic area or a lesser zoning intent as well. So I just want to remind the board what your choices are.
And Chris, I just wanted to confirm that if we're waiting on the traffic study, then we have no choice, but, we can't table.
No. You have those 4. Those are your 4 choices. Yeah. As again, it's made clear, the planning commission does not have the option of the tabling option, especially when it's been heard. You have those 4 options.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. Right.
Can't really make a decision.
Well,
The main issue is traffic.
Yep.
so based on that, do you have a motion?
Let me get my wording.
Come on, Tamika.
Mr. Chairman, I move to deny the FU case number 2022-07, 1716, 1726, 1736, 1980, and 1670 Lester Road, ... I would deny the request to amend the future land use map from high-density residential to light industrial. And did we do the future land use map, or do we have to do the,
That's what we just did.
yeah, I mean, we do that first, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I second.
Second. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed? Now we're moving on to the rezoning.
Oh, I do that too.
Well, you don't have to.
Oh, go for it.
Go for it, Tamika.
Mr. Chairman,
Great job.
I move to deny the rezoning case number 2022-14 for 1716, 1726, 1736, 1980, and 1670 Lester Road, as well as Farmer Road and Sigmund Road in Conyers.
Second.
Motion aye, second. Discussion. I would say, it's good to have some reasoning. I would say, this request is an excessive or burdensome use on the existing streets, infrastructure, and that would be a reason, and the impacts that it would have in the area. And there's no say, it does seem that it would have a reasonable economic use for a high-density residential, maybe not a low-density residential. I just wanted to put in some, reasonings, at least that I see, for denial. So,
I wanted to say another thing for denial. I wish that make it a concentrated effort to get involved with the community prior to coming to the planning development. That would be one of the reasons, the lack
Right.
of the involvement with the developer
Right.
and the community.
All right, so motion on the table. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. And the Board of Commissioners meeting will be, we have it on here, Thursday, September 22nd at 6 o'clock. I'm going to allow just a minute for the room to clear. Okay.
and they're running on me.
And where do you put the church today?
You know, from the church to daycare, how they were able, how did they do all the industrial like that? They got that.
No, I thought they came right.
You said no to this. So when you do this shop, this is part of that. Yeah. This is on the other side.
Okay, yeah. No, it's down
I mean, I understand what the logic for it, roughly and that's these things if you read them.
You made them read them.
I read it. You did? Yeah.
No, I scared of them.
If you do then we're gonna, if you don't do
Y'all could clear the room, please. You're welcome to just talk outside, but we need to continue the meeting. Thank you.
that, you know, you're gonna be in a lawsuit. It basically says that. It's like, because we didn't change what we did. Because ours says that's a special road. Well, what's special?
All right, we're moving on to the item R4. It's all right. 1066 Honey Creek Road, future land use case number 2022-08. A request to amend the future land use map category from medium density residential to office institutional to allow the development of a daycare facility. And a request to rezone one parcel from R1, single-family residential, to O&I, office institutional, for the purpose of a daycare facility. Parcel 079002010C, 5.84 acres. Applicant is Anthony and Constance Thomas. And as the last one, we require, there's 2 public hearing, 2 votes are required. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, this application is before you this evening is Flume Case 22-008, rezoning application 22-15. Again, the applicants are Mr. Anthony and Constance Thomas. Again, for the record, the location is 1066 Honey Creek Road. And again, the applicants are asking to rezone, to change the future land use map and rezone the current property or subject property to office institutional for the intended use of a daycare. To summary, the subject property is current location is 1066. It is an existing church. The applicants would like to modify the existing church into be a daycare. The applicants did come into to the county office seeking to do a special land use permit for a daycare, but when they found out that they would be limited in the number of kids they would be able to host at their facility, they decided to go through the route of rezoning their application and changing the future land use map because this would give them opportunity to host a far more amount of kids than the minimum of 7, I believe, that a special use permit would grant them. Again, the applicants have gone through the process of right from the start. The fire marshal has came up to the facility and has already approved them for a daycare, but they did not have the proper zoning classification from the planning department. So that's why we are here. Again, there will not be any site improvements. Again, all improvements will be interior. The access to the property, actually, they have 2 access points on the property. Is 2 access to the property along Honey Creek. They have adequate parking because, again, it's an existing church. And again, they are abutting a commercial node at the intersection of Honey Creek and I'm sorry, let me change it. Honey Creek and McDonough Highway. Again, sorry. So they are abutting an existing commercial node. Again, located to the southern part of it is the Tony Valley subdivision. Located further west past the intersection is the Pinewood Shores subdivision again. Located immediately adjacent to the property is the Ace Hardware store, and then you move further towards the intersection is commercial zone properties, and then a few office institutional on the on the outskirts of the commercial node. Again, this is the future land use map. Again, clearly you see that the red indicates the commercial area, and then the blue highlights the office institutional area. Everything else around it is medium density residential zone character area properties. Again, this is the current zoning map of the subject property. Again, it is zone R1. Again, adjacent to the property to the west is commercial properties. Located to the south, again, is residential areas. And again, if you move further towards the intersection of McDonough and Honey Creek, you will see there it is a commercial node with commercial zone properties and office institutional use properties. Again, before I like to reiterate again this, the board's choices. Again, you have 4 choices when considering this application. Those choices again either recommend approval of this application as intended by the applicant, recommend approval with conditions stated by staff, recommend approval at a lesser degree of a zoning or less geographic area, or outright recommend denial of this application. Again, your criteria that's in the staff report or the standards that which staff has provided technical analysis of it, and therefore, after reviewing the application, staff would like to recommend approval with 3 conditions for this application. Again, before you ask questions, the applicant is here to provide any supplemental information that I may have not provided for you.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from the applicant.
I feel like I'm in trouble.
You're not in trouble.
Probably going to be one of my hardest sermons that I ever preached. Well, I'm Bishop Anthony Thomas. That's my lovely wife, and my son sits there. We are residents here in Rockdale County. Been here for about 16 years, pastoring here in Rockdale County for about 16 years as well. We live in this neighborhood. What we want to do is provide affordable health care for those within the community and those who attend the church. That's just simple. I don't have a whole lot, to say. There's no construction that is needed. The structure is already there. The classrooms are already there. We're not changing anything. We just want to be able to provide this service for the community. Thank y'all. It's nice meeting y'all.
I just want to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where will the kids be playing? And do you have outside areas?
Yeah, we have all of that. And also is actually equipped with the gymnasium. So, and on that side of town, there's nothing there. So we would love to be able to allow the community to come in and use that,
And how many children are you?
Around between 40 to 50 families is what we're trying to help. So about 40 or 50.
I might have heard you wrong. Did you say health care?
That's what he said.
Child care.
Child
care. No, I ain't trying to do no health care.
Okay. All right. I want to just clarify that. Thank you.
So it's good. You're occupying the space now. You just want to be allowed to have daycare. Okay,
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
not pending the sale or anything like that. You already
No,
occupied.
man. We actually just purchased it in November.
Okay.
November.
Thank you,
Yes.
sir.
So it's existing as your church now?
Yes.
Okay, you're just adding a daycare to your church?
Yes, because it's about 9,000 square feet that we're trying to turn into the daycare center. It's a gym and about 13 classrooms that surrounds that. So we want to, of course, do daycare there.
And so it's just your classroom is like from infants to toddler, or from
Y'all
just.
know not to ask me that question. From infants
Just.
If you could stand up.
You got to come up here.
Front and center.
We can go together, so we both in trouble.
Right.
But we would like to do 6 weeks till 4 years old. We want to do pre-K on one side because it's 6 classrooms on this side and it's 6 on this side. So one side of it will be 6 weeks to 3 years toddler, and the right-hand side of the gym will be pre-K only.
Okay, all right.
And then we want to do before and after school too,
Okay,
those that need it.
So that means you already have enough parking because you have the church. Okay.
Yes. We wouldn't be tearing down any trees or digging up no holes. It's all there.
Is there any consideration to put, I don't see a fence around here anywhere.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we actually built the fence for the, from right from the start. They told us to build a fence.
Yeah, that's what I was
So,
saying.
yes,
I
ma'am,
used
we
to have
do
some
a fence.
daycare,
Yes.
so.
Yes, ma'am, we built it,
Yeah.
when we do the fence, like I think in March, April, we did it.
Okay,
for,
I didn't see it in here. Okay, good.
Have you gotten that approval from right from the start yet? or-
We are
Yeah.
ready to go. We
Yeah,
just
they
waiting
just
on you
want
guys.
the zoning part.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. All right. Any other questions for Chris?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there is, you said commercial and all, it's not spot zoning because it's next to.
Yes, sir. So again, just to kind of do a quick planning theory, again, if you have a commercial node, especially in a kind of residential area, you want to be able to provide certain types of services where everybody doesn't have to travel to a main commercial area. It's small shops, small goods, and so forth. So the idea at the intersection of Honey Creek and McDellitt Road is, since it's already a kind of an established commercial node of commercial uses, and then other established office institutional uses, having this property be a transitional buffer between them and the residential area makes sense because again, it's providing a service that's not in the area but would be a benefit of the area. Because again, you want to kind of create this easy transition again from commercial to office institutional, then to residential. Again, kind of like a sliding scale. So therefore, from a planning standpoint, it makes sense for this transition and so forth.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. In my opinion, I agree. It does make sense. A good transition, a benefit to the community. I usually think real hard with comprehensive land use plan amendments. This one to me makes sense. Any other comments? Questions?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so motions. And if we do make a motion to approve, we have the county's conditions to, also might want to include, if you so desire.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the request to rezone from R1, which is single-family residential, to office industrial with pending the recommendations made. I'm sorry, yeah, office institutional, thank you so much. Pending the approved conditions made by the.
Point of order, we usually do the future land use map and then the.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
No, that's
okay,
okay.
that's two motions, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I move that we
You're removing
amend the future
You're
land.
removing your prior motion?
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, let me remove that one. To amend the future land use from minimum density residential to office industrial.
Okay. Request to change the land use map from medium density residential to office industrial. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. None opposed. All right. Now for the rezoning.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request to rezone R1, single-family residential, to OI, office institutional, pending the recommendations made by staff.
Okay.
I second.
Second. Okay. All right. All in favor? Any discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Moving on. Okay. All right. So, skipping all these things. Okay. All right. So I have it right here, skipping the right things. The last item on the agenda is what I had talked to our former director about is, and what we just mentioned before, is traffic study requirements and how it's really too late for us to do anything. Once it comes to preliminary plat approval, we have no say. Approve it or not approve it. So I had talked about proposing a revision to put in our county code to require these traffic studies at an earlier stage when it comes to us. I have some wording here. I'll just kind of, I'll let just comment on it or whatever. Okay. This is what and obviously subject to be changed or whatever, but when applying for rezoning, special use permit, and preliminary plat approvals, a traffic study for all large-scale retail development application, as well as any residential applications containing 9 or more units, shall be provided with the application. The planning director or his or her designee may require that a traffic study be provided for any other applications where increased volumes may impact the existing capacity significantly, traffic flow or safety on any existing county street. When required, the final traffic study must accompany rezoning, special use permits, and preliminary plat applications for the proposed development. If the required traffic study is not provided before the application deadline, the application will be declared incomplete. And
Mr. Chairman, I think this is really needed.
Yeah, you can't.
I just want to make sure, because you said retail, will retail be inclusive of industrial?
industrial, we could put large
That's my only
retail
thing, 'cause I wanna make sure that-
or industrial, yeah.
Or industrial.
Right, okay. So, Chris, did you want to make it, if you can make any comment?
No, staff has made some similar comments as well, so it is a welcome idea that we will wholeheartedly take a look into review. As I don't know if any of you mentioned, but Mr. Bill Johnson is helping out, so he's already made some changes, made some notifications of certain things, so staff has no objection or taking a look at this. So.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you. All right. I don't believe any vote is required on this other than just kind of presenting that, and then, once you do that, then you would come back to us and we would vote on that. Okay. Moving on, report, City of Conyers, none. Rockdale County, none. As I said earlier, the Board of Commissioners will hold a zoning public hearing for the county items in person at 6 p.m. on Thursday, September 22nd at 901 Main Street in the Assembly Hall. And the city hearing is when? September 21st. The city hearing at what time? 6 p.m. also, okay. All right, the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting will be on 10/13/2022, 6 p.m. right here in the Assembly Hall, or it may be next door, depending on, okay, it'll be next door. We're expecting on more people. We'll have additional seats.
Just to let you know, since we have a large docket, we're going to try to go next door. Well, I'm sorry, not try. We will go next door to accommodate any a large amount of group of people who may be coming for those particular applications.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Okay. Final item on the agenda is to adjourn.
I motion.
Motion to adjourn. Second. Any discussion? Better not be. Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Okay. All right.